Welcome to Ojas Oasis. This is a place where you will learn how to optimize your body, mind, and spirit in ways you have longed for a long time, perhaps your entire life. Our mission is to help you cultivate, nourish, and protect your Ojas, your immunity, and inner peace.
So, what connected us, what brought me to you, was your book, Ayurveda Mama. I saw it on Instagram like a couple weeks ago. I saw it, and I know it's coming out really soon, right? On the
Yeah, next
28th.
week.
So
Yeah.
I'm ordering it. I should pre-order it. I saw that was an option. So first of all, it's a beautiful cover. The illustrations in your book are gorgeous, and the name, I love the name. So first, how about we just start with what inspired you to write this beautiful book?
Yeah, thank you for asking. It's always so nice to reflect on the journey. And it started when I was pregnant with my first baby. And I had a really beautiful and ease filled and really thriving pregnancy. Everybody would be like, wow, how are you feeling so good? Wow, how is it so easy for you? And one of my friends, Roddy, she said, you should write a book. Like, all mamas need this information. And I was sharing on my Instagram platform the little practices I was doing and the lifestyle, the dietary things, the herbs that I was taking. And everybody was like, wow, I wish that I knew this when I was pregnant. And I began to think like, wow, like, why isn't this information more widely available? And I talked to all my Ayurvedic teachers, and I looked up all the different books, and I just couldn't find one book that contained within it, even in the whole pregnancy world, the whole process from preconception, nourishing mama and baby through pregnancy, and not just diet, because as you know, Ayurveda says that it's not just the food that we eat that affects our body and our mind, and thus the body and mind of the baby growing inside of us, but it's everything that mama sees and hears and smells and tastes and feels. All of these things are informing the health, the holistic health of baby. And so throughout pregnancy into labor and birth, like how to make that experience so sacred and empowering, and really invite mama into this transition. It's like an initiation into motherhood in a way that she feels so deeply empowered, so deeply seen, and so deeply held, that she knows that I was born for this, and that there's Ayurvedic practices that support that type of deep faith and trust, as well as like the sacred practices of baby first coming into the world. And Ayurveda says that in mama's body, and also the first, even up to 7 years, but especially those first 42 days of baby's life, they don't yet know themselves as separate. Like, they are their environment. And so everything that mama is experiencing, the baby starts to feel as, oh, this is what's normal. And so how to nourish mama in those sacred days after giving birth so that her nervous system is soothed, so that she can feel the most vital and vibrant than she ever has in her life in that sacred window, so that baby knows, wow, first of all, this is a beautiful world. I am so safe. I am so held. I'm so wanted and supported. I am so nourished, because these beliefs that are imprinted, even modern science is showing that at the moment of conception, mama's and daddy's consciousness in that moment imprints on to the child's genes. And so it all matters, like how much consciousness, how much intention we can bring into this process of inviting a child into this world, of nourishing mama and baby holistically, so that we can birth beings who fundamentally, I oftentimes think of the works of Gabor Mate, Daniel Siegel. It's like all of the trauma that exists in our lifetime happened in those formative years, in the womb when we were children. How do we raise children that don't have to spend their entire lives healing from the trauma of their past? And what would those beings, I call them whole humans, people who know who they are, and know that they have value, they have a contribution. They're important, and they're here to offer what's important back to the world. And so the whole journey of Ayurveda Mama is really the journey of healing ourselves. You know, our children will only know how whole they are based on how whole we know we are, so that we can invite whole humans into this world. And yeah, when I birthed my son, it was a few days later that I was in my bedroom and I was holding him, and it was the first time I just started sobbing. And I thought, like, at birth I was just going to sob, and I didn't have those strong emotions at first, actually. And it was really a few days of being with him and then holding him and just sobbing, wishing that every child could be loved like this. And the sadness in knowing that not all children are. It's just like, it's devastating. It's heartbreaking. And so that first year of his life was when I wrote this book. And it felt like it came through me. I would wake up. I mean, it's unheard of. I would wake up early. I'd wake up at 4:30, 5 a.m. so that I would have time before he woke up to write. And I just know that a nourished mother, like a mama's energy radiates, and it's the energy that her children feel and thus become. And they say the mother is the heartbeat of the home. And I just know that, like, I sometimes have wondered, like, I wonder what Hitler's mother was like. I wonder what these people who bring intensity into the, what was their mom like? And so it's a lot of responsibility as mothers to become whole so that we can raise these whole humans. And it starts from the very beginning. And the journey of motherhood is profound. And I have a chapter called Newborn Mama, because I didn't know how much I didn't know about becoming a mother, and the profound healing path that motherhood will bring to light. Something my husband said last night. He said, children are so alive, and they trigger the parts of us that are dead. I'm just like, wow, like, that's profound, because it's like those parts of us that died, that they're calling back to life. And so the journey of healing that happens through motherhood is just like, whew, nobody prepares us for that. And so to offer mamas a little preparation of how to practically step into that role in a way that takes them on that deep inner journey of healing.
I just cried. I mean, a little tear just came because, well, I love babies too. I love the 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 beautiful connection between mothers and their babies. And I'm a very visual person, so when you were describing the first few days postpartum with your baby and that thought and the tears, that feels so real to me. I feel like that's such a universal. I'm not a mom yet, not a mama yet, but there's a very maternal energy that I've always felt, and a very protective instinct that I feel for all babies. I feel like all the babies are our responsibility to nurture and protect and love. Everyone's babies. If it takes a village. It takes a village to care for children and help assist and support women as well. It's There is no one without the other. They're so intrinsically connected. You can't be a mama without a baby, can't have a baby without a mama. And that relationship is so sacred, like you said. That word sacred, really, there's probably no higher word than that to describe that connection. And so your desire to not only deepen your own understanding, but then learn as much as you can and then be that vessel. I mean, I feel like that purity of your heart, that's how all that, the book just came through you. It just, you just became a channel for all of it. And I think that is that is a dharma. I mean, that is 100% what dharma is. I think I really relate to that. I mean, this podcast for one thing is definitely just something that flows, but yeah, making once you find Ayurveda, um, you're like, this is the best kept secret, but I don't want it to be a secret. I want everyone to know this. This is something that can change the world. And there's no doubt by putting your unique, your beautiful, divine, feminine, loving care, the way that you talked about how you wished every baby was loved that deeply. I feel like your book is like your third baby. The way that you know, you
Yeah.
and I saw, I can feel the amount of tenderness that and intention that you have behind making it. And so there's no doubt in my mind it's going to be a book that is on many, many mothers' nightstand, like their guide to
Thank you,
deepening their
Sasha.
understanding of what it means to become a mama. Yeah, yeah. I mean, I hope it is. And if not, I will get this book for them. Like that will be my gift to them. Like, here, this will help you. Read it.
Thank you.
So yeah, of course. And I'm just grateful that just like it takes a village to raise a baby, it takes a village to teach Ayurveda. And there's so many different branches of it and limbs and paths and ways you can teach it, whether it be a book or a podcast or classes, a school, workshops, yoga retreats. There's so many ways. And so I'm just grateful. The more people are out there, I get excited because it's a win for Ayurveda. A win for Ayurveda is my ultimate. That's my love language. It's like, thank you. Thank you for helping the mission. So, on that note, I would love to learn a bit more about you and how you found Ayurveda and a bit about your
Yeah.
background.
Yeah. I grew up to a mom and a dad who were both practicing Bhakti Yoga. And so in the 70s, they were both seeking truth, and they found a beautiful teacher,
So
Swami
amazing.
Prabhupada, who woke up something in their hearts, and they wanted to give their life to really the mission of bringing God consciousness and self-realization to the world. And so when I was my dad was always into holistic medicine. He's a naturopathic doctor. He ran a health food store when we were young. He was always doing just powerful healing things. I remember from the time I can remember, every night going to sleep, he would massage my sister and my feet. And he would always tell us like to put sesame oil on our feet. It's so nourishing and it's so grounding and it affects the entire body. And so he was always exemplifying these profound practices of yoga and Ayurveda. And then when I was probably about 12 or 13, he opened the Ayurveda Health Retreat, which is a beautiful Panchakarma retreat center here in Alachua, Florida. And when I was 15, he trained my sister and I in all of the healing modalities that he offers there. And so people come and they stay 3 days, 5 days, a month, and receive powerful, simple yet powerful healing treatments. And they live an Ayurvedic lifestyle and they practice yoga and pranayama and eat Ayurvedic food. And I saw from a very young age, people would come, and whether they had dis-ease of the body or mind or relationship or life, disease is really any part of our life where there's not ease. And so they would come with all sorts of different ailments. And after just a few days, like something would change and they would heal. And so Ayurveda wasn't necessarily something I had to study in order to have faith in. It's something that I saw, like, wow, these practices and this lifestyle, they're so simple, but somehow when they're applied consistently, people begin to change, people begin to heal. And so, yeah, I offered sessions there for about 4 years before going to college in Colorado. And there I got my major in psychology and yoga at Naropa University. And then my sister and I moved to New York City to open a yoga studio a few years later, about 4 years later. And it's like a whole journey, but now we're back here in Alachua raising our families. My sister and I both came with our husbands, and now we're running the Ayurveda Health Retreat here in Alachua. When I lived in New York City, I studied at Kripalu and got certified as an Ayurveda health counselor and offered one-on-one sessions for many, many years. And now my passion is really in writing and also supporting groups. Because I really feel like, yes, we can heal individually, but to heal in groups is profound, because when somebody else heals, it triggers the same response in me. When somebody else cries, wow, it wakes up a part of me that also needed to cry. When somebody else feels joy, I feel like the healing that happens in groups is incredible. A lot of our deepest trauma has happened in relationships, and so to heal through relationships is just profound. And so now we're here and we're running the Ayurveda Health Retreat. We have an online community called Soul Space where people can join from all over the world and take yoga classes with us and Ayurveda classes and workshops and really profound courses, and the greatest teachers that we've ever studied from. They come into our online space and share there. And so it's a beautiful, beautiful way to stay connected to the guests that come to the retreat, but also anybody who's interested in deepening in community, no matter where they are in the world.
You're just a dream. You are a dream woman. Your life, like growing up growing up on an Ayurveda retreat and having parents that are Bhakti yogis. And you said you opened a yoga studio in New York. I lived in New York for quite a long time as well. What was the name of your yoga studio?
The first one we opened was Stanton Street Yoga. That was in
Okay.
2011. And then
Okay.
we ran the Bhakti Center yoga program for about 8 years. And that was
Ooh.
probably 2013 or even
Okay.
longer than that. So probably 2013 till 2021.
That's amazing. As much as I do love New York and I have a lifelong I'm always going to refer to New York as my stomping grounds because that's where right after I graduated college I became an adult in New York City. Like that was where I kind of learned how to fend for myself in the world, which is quite a place to figure out how to do that. But as much as I love it, I feel like you made a very wise decision to bring your kids into what seems to be a really sattvic, lush nature environment, which is so, I mean, important, I think, in developmental stages, but also even, whether you're a baby or not, to be able to go outside in your backyard and walk barefoot in the grass, and connect with nature is one of the most sattvic things I think you can do. And New York is, I think one of my teachers once said, New York City is the capital of Rajas in the
Definitely.
world, like capital
Yeah.
city of Rajas, which is, it has beauty to it too. I mean, we love Rajas as well. We're not going to, shun Rajas, but
Yeah.
it's,
It's good for a
definitely
certain
not like
season.
for a season. Exactly. So I'm
Yeah.
happy you
Like when
found your
you
way
want to
back to
build something
this.
or create something, or it's like it's an amazing place because anything you want, it's there. And so if you have any motivation inside of you, it's like what you can create while you're there is just like, wow. And that's why they say if you can do it in New York City, you can do it anywhere. Um, if you have that motivation and that energy to build something, it's like, wow, yeah, it's a power spot for sure. And I'm
Yes.
grateful to be in the woods now on 10 acres with my family, and my parents are here, and to have like that living village is so rare these days. Like right now my kids are with my mom, and so many days of the week they know and love their grandmother and their grandfather, and it's just so special and so rare.
Yes. Well, I feel like you have a very well-rounded perspective on your reality, and I feel like that gratitude and that awareness of what you have and the desire to share it and to, you know, make a retreat center and invite more people to see, look, you can, this is how you can live. This is another way. And you will heal in this environment. You know, that's a really beautiful
Yeah.
offering.
Thank you.
And
Yeah. So many
yeah, and
blessings. And go ahead.
yeah, I just want to, like, I want to go to this retreat center. I'm like, what is going on over there? Because the only, well, I go to Vaidyagrama. I don't know if you've heard of it. It's a healing village in India, in southern India,
Yeah.
Coimbatore.
Yeah.
You've
I
heard of
have
it?
heard of it. Hmm.
Yeah. So I go
Yeah.
there. That I've been there twice, and I'm going again, you know, this year. But I would love to see your retreat center. Oh my gosh, what a dream to
Amazing. Yeah,
be able
please
to.
come. Anybody who's listening, please come. We have monthly cleanses, which we wanted to make more affordable so that people can come for like 4 days and experience Ayurveda without having to pay the high expenses of a personal retreat. But then we also have personal retreats for people who want to really dive deep. And a lot of people now are coming for their preconception journey to really prepare their bodies, their hearts and minds for the journey of becoming mothers. And so, yeah, it's wonderful.
I'm so glad that you said the word preconception because now I want to ask you a bit like more about what conscious conception is because I know that that is a huge core tenet of your book Ayurveda Mama. So, how would you define conscious conception?
Conscious conception, according to Ayurveda, is when you've really prepared not only your body and your mind, but also the entire field of your life to welcome in a soul. And so many pregnancies are like, it's like somebody is like, oh, Fuck. You know, it's like they see the birth,
Yeah.
they miss their period and they're like, oh, you know, oh God, I'm pregnant. And so it's like that imprinted on the baby is like their first impression or one of their first impressions. It's like, oh, like I'm not wanted. Oh, I'm a burden. And so conscious conception is the acknowledgement of, I mean, Ayurveda, it's like, how does life become sacred? How does our entire life become a ceremony? And what is a ceremony? It's every part of it is intentional. And we acknowledge every part of our life as a part of something bigger. And so when we are ready, and you know, in my book I also talk about, are we ever really ready? Because even with my first baby, we planned for him, we prepared ourselves, and then when I was like, wow, I'm pregnant, I remember that night I was like, what did I get myself into? My whole life is going to change. It's like, because like the baby will bring with it its own medicine. And that's something that I talk to a lot of mamas that I work one-on-one with is that even if you didn't consciously conceive, even if you found out like, oh my gosh, we're pregnant, somehow even that experience is the perfect medicine for you to deal with whatever it is that's arising, whether it's fear or the feeling of I'm not ready, or oh my gosh, my relationship's not perfect yet, or I'm still dealing with these issues in my body. A soul won't come in if it's not perfect. If you know anything about karma and reincarnation, if
Yeah.
you have any deep faith in the realm of spirit, it's like nothing actually happens by accident, and every experience is perfect. Every experience is medicine. And so ideally, we come to a place where we've really prepared our entire life. We've worked on different things in relationship, you know, with our partner, where it's like maybe we don't communicate well. Maybe we don't fight well. You know, I often say that a good relationship doesn't mean that you never fight. It just means that you fight well. Like you have the ability to communicate and then grow from whatever it is that arises. You've healed any dis-ease in your body, and then you've nourished yourself so that you're ready to carry a soul and then nourish their body and their whole being for 9 almost 10 months. If you have a really stressful life and you're constantly working or worrying or anxious, it's like, wait a minute, how do I tend to that part of the field so that I feel like there's more ease and more grace. And so how do I tend to the different areas, not so that they're perfect, because if we're aiming for perfection, it's unlikely that we'll get there, but how do we consciously tend to all areas of our life so that then we can come together in union with the intention to call in a soul? And how sacred is that? Like, how special to come together, not just by like our impulse, but with this clear intention of we're coming together. And how special that this act of making love, this art of making love, can create life. And like celebrating the sacredness of that union. And then in the act of making love, it's like the mind is absorbed, of course, in connection, in love with your partner, but also in union with the divine. And how that can become one of the most profound and beautiful ceremonies you'll ever do in your life. Is like, wow, the act of calling in a soul through the sacred act of lovemaking. And so that's conscious conception. It's really preparing the field, and then coming together with the intention of calling in a soul, and or also honoring that however it happens is perfect. And I feel like that oftentimes is a deeper act of faith and trust, because wow, already this little soul is starting to stir inside of you fear, shame, guilt, like whatever it is that's ready to be healed. Here it is. And heal, heal, heal.
That is so beautiful. Conscious conception. Imagining a whole generation of children who were called in, invited, and whose mamas went through that process. I would love actually to ask you about the process, the physical process of preparing to conceive, and some of, you don't have to list all of them, of course, but maybe some of your favorites, or maybe some of the favorites that you've done or that you've seen are really super effective. You mentioned some rituals and preparation techniques, Ayurvedic techniques to prepare the body to, become fertile and healthy and clear all the channels, and, you know, create this really sattvic environment for life to feel welcome. Would you like to share some of those?
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, there's so many different layers and levels to approach this from. There's the very like general answer, but with each woman, it's very unique and very different, which is why I love working with mamas on the journey.
Ayurveda.
Generally speaking, it's 6 months of cleansing. Sorry, 3 months of cleansing. And that's like really more simple and sattvic foods, less sugar, caffeine, no alcohol, of really cleansing the body to support Agni, our fire of digestion, and eliminate any toxicity that has stored itself in our fat tissues. And as Ayurveda says, it's like all of our memories are also stored in our fatty tissues. And so as we begin to cleanse our physical body, you can't help but begin to cleanse the different layers of ourselves as well. And so it's a time of inviting and opening to whatever it is that arises, whatever emotions, whatever fears, whatever doubts, whatever it is that's arising during that time, to really honor it and get the support needed to be able to process and integrate the insights that are coming, so that you can really release, whether it's beliefs that no longer serves, ideas, limiting, like whatever it is that no longer serves this instrument as a vessel of wholeness. It's really time to begin to release all of that, so that then in the next few months, you can focus on nourishing and rebuilding. And so here is when we focus on Ojas. And so eating foods that, yeah, it's like we want a surplus. These days we're really focused on like the skinny mini bodies. Dr. Ladd says, Vata, the skinny mini. But like during this time of nourishment, we want to invite more of the kapha. So that mama, it's like when we're nourished, the nervous system is just at ease. We can navigate life with with more presence, more intention, more purpose. And so how do we really build the storehouse of nourishment so that when the soul comes in, it's like, oh, it's like a soft bed for them to arrive in where they just feel stable and held. Oftentimes, not always, but oftentimes in that first trimester, if there's an increase in vata, if there's not enough nourishment, if mama is still experiencing anxiety, stress, if her nervous system is still very wired, it's not a stable place for baby to rest, because already in the body, once pregnancy happens, the cells are multiplying and dividing, and so much vata is already happening inside. And so the baby needs as much stability and ground as possible. So mama is really creating that fertile nest for baby to arrive into and just be held. And so really focusing on nourishment for the 3 months prior to conception. Yeah. Anything you want me to hone in on there? Or shall I just continue on?
No, those are really good. The oil, when we talk about Ojas, I can't help but think of oil immediately and the role of oil that, because, there are many holistic health practices, but nothing quite as nourishing as applying oil to your body, anointing yourself with oils, whether it be with essential oils or, the loving touch that you apply your body when you touch your skin, or the thoughts that you're thinking when you're touching your own body. And I can imagine that could be such a profound practice for someone who's never really explored self-massage or touched themselves with loving hands or thought very many loving thoughts about their bodies, which I do think is so common for women, So I
Totally.
know that Abhyanga is probably one of your favorites too, because you grew up your dad telling you to massage your feet before bed with the tylum, the sesame tylum, which is, a incredible technique for going into a deep sleep for anyone wondering. But yeah, is there like a certain one when you work with mamas that you recommend, like a certain oil or a certain and as you said, I know in Ayurveda it always depends, and we curate every single individual unique experience for everybody. But can you give like maybe a
Yeah.
sample
I mean,
of
oftentimes,
one mantra or
yeah. Yeah. Okay. First of all, Abhyanga is surely one of my favorite self-care practices. Anytime I'm feeling just disconnected from myself or overwhelmed or, yeah, just disconnected, I just know that doing an Abhyanga just helps to collect my energy and bring me back to myself. And so it's a powerful and beautiful practice. And more than a specific herbal concoction or decoction to build into the oil, of course, there's beautiful Brahmi, rose, like these are beautiful herbs that support pregnancy and conception. What I support women to do, similar to what you were just saying, is to take the time to be with themselves and feel the pleasure that comes from massaging their own body. As if it were a meditation, the mind wanders and gets distracted. Come back to just massaging your body and allowing yourself to receive, because that's another huge part of conception. Of for a woman to be fertile means that she's able to receive a soul. That the sperm is able to find this egg. It's like she's receiving. And so a lot of it is also healing the womb space. Ashoka is a beautiful herb. You can take a bath in an Ashoka decoction. Ashoka means remover of sorrow. And so it's a beautiful herb to be an ally during that time of preconception, to take an herbal bath with and allow any sorrow that is held in the womb, because the womb holds all of our emotions. And if it's heavy with emotion, then it's going to be harder to receive. And so the process of practicing receiving, which can be really simple, as in like receiving your loving touch. Snehana, it's another word for oil, the oiliness that comes through Abhyanga. It's love. You're receiving love. Or even when you go outside, it's like we can be so mechanical in our life, so habituated to certain ways of being that we forget to like feel the warm glow of the sun on our skin and receive that. Like receive the next breath that's coming in. It's like opening yourself to become receptive in your life. Then I truly believe that God, grace, the universe, whatever it is that you connect with, they see, oh wow, this person is receptive. Let me give them more. And I feel like that's how we call in abundance of any sort, as we become receptive to the beauty that is already there in every single moment. And then God's like, oh, they're receptive. Let me shower more. I don't know if you noticed, but like I know when I teach, when I'm in an active state of teaching, I feel like I'm receiving so much. And I sometimes I'm sharing things. I'm like, wow, like it's just coming through. And I think it's because when we're sharing, like when we're receiving and also then when we're sharing something, God's like, I can use them. They're a channel, they're a vessel. And then she pours into us. And so to open ourselves to become receptive, which means oftentimes healing the blockages that keep us from receiving or keep that energy from
Yes.
flowing.
Yes. Gosh, I relate to every single thing. As you were saying that, I was imagining the receptivity happening once you empty yourself a bit. When you were talking about the heaviness of sorrow or just the heaviness of whatever's blocking you from being able to receive, I'm imagining all the thousands of nadis and the shrotas, the shrotamsi in the body, and how we accumulate so much over a human lifetime. So many things can clog our channels. Ama, obviously, we know Ama is the toxicity, like a toxic buildup of undigested foods, and but it's also undigested emotions, undigested experiences, things that we have yet to integrate into our consciousness. Like we have like a backlog of things that we have yet to find the space to let go. And you know, and Ayurveda, all of these practices, whether it be panchakarma or just 5 minutes a day of connecting with your body and your mind and aligning all these things, aligning your thoughts and your body. And I feel like all of these
You
things are,
frozen. I
hold
can't
on one
hear
second. I
you
think I may
or
have
see
just,
you.
Deanna, can you still hear me or did we cut out for a second? Is my connection? Oh, there you are. Okay, you're back. Sorry
Great.
about that.
Yeah.
It's a little bit spotty.
That's
It comes in and out, but the recording will be
okay.
perfect. Um,
Okay.
I was just talking about receptivity and how we're able to receive more when we have space for more. Like if we're totally filled to the brim with traumas or thoughts, like limiting beliefs or literal, um, literal physical stuff, whether it be ama or like, any toxicity in the body, anything that needs to come out, any malas that need to come out, um, when we finally do that cleanse, which is you were talking about that 3 month preparation of cleansing, then you have the space to receive too. I mean,
Yeah.
you've just offloaded so many layers of heavy just stuff that you've been carrying, and you might not even realize it until you start to feel lighter, and then in that process it's so beautiful to be like, wow, this is how I can be. I can feel this light. I can have extra room for something I really want, and I am intentionally inviting in, as opposed to just being out in the world and just being sort of like, okay, whatever's coming at me, I guess I'm just going to have to absorb whatever's out there and figure it out as I go. Ayurveda is basically saying you don't have to be, victim to the world. You can actually have this really, really beautiful relationship with life.
Yeah.
And you and simply by tuning into these signals in your body, you'll know when it's time to do a cleanse. And you'll know when it's
Yeah.
time to nourish yourself if you're feeling depleted or fatigued.
Yeah.
And yeah. And it, ooh, actually, what's popping up for me now, I have all these questions for you, but I'm like having this organic desire to ask you about the male role in conscious conception, because we're talking a lot about like, obviously the book is Ayurveda Mama. We want to support mamas, but I feel like the the role of the partner is actually so important too, to nourish the mama too, for her to feel support, and also the health of the seed, right? The health of the, because it's two people making a person. So how would you describe the ideal way for the partner or the man, or nowadays it could be, there's so many different ways to conceive now. um but how would you say, um in that process, what are some ways, like some practical maybe pieces of advice for someone wanting to support their mama to be?
Yeah. Well, the cleansing and nourishing, those 6 months of preparation is suggested for both the mama and the dad.
Hmm.
Because, like you said, the quality of the semen is also obviously affecting the quality of the baby. And so that's, again, on all levels, not just physical, but dad's mental state, his emotional state. It's all imprinted within his semen. And so in preparation, we want to do cleansing and we also want to do nourishing. So that, yeah, the baby is called in and then created with as wholesome of parents as possible. And again, healing is a journey. They're not going to be wholly healed, like fully healed at that moment of conception necessarily. Yeah, but doing the work to do what he can to be as healthy and vital and strong as possible. And that's what Ayurveda says, that at the moment of conception, the baby's prakriti is created. And so their blueprint of health for their lifetime is established at that moment of conception based on the health or dis-ease of both parents. And then the
Hmm.
quality of their manas, their mind, is established based on the health or dis-ease of the mind of both of their parents at that moment of conception. And so again, when coming together to make love, is their connection, is their beauty. And that's something that you were asking before, like the details of like that moment of the conception, like the art of making love beautifully. Ayurveda talks
Hmm.
about so many things, like how to create the room and bringing in fresh, beautiful flowers and banana leaves, and perhaps lighting candles and saying prayers and mantras together, like really establishing that beautiful sattvic environment for a soul of that same quality to come through. And so, I mean, with the rituals around conception, like a ritual in and of itself is quite empty. Like you can say mantras and pour water on your hands and offer fire, but if your heart and the deep intention isn't infused into whatever it is that you're doing, it's actually empty. And so, my main piece of advice for that moment of conception is to create rituals or honor sacred rituals and bring to it your own unique, personal, very personal intention. Because the quality of your intention is actually what creates the space. Then the father, they say that the father's only job during pregnancy is to keep the mama happy. And so if it's not a
Love
father,
it.
then the partner's only job during pregnancy is to keep mama happy. Because a happy mama is what is going to create a
Happy
happy
baby.
baby. Yeah. And
I was
so,
waiting for you to say that one. I was waiting for that. Just keep her happy. That's it. Bam. That's up. Just
yeah,
make sure she's happy, you know,
yeah, go out of
massage
your
her
way
feet.
to nourish her, try not to argue with her. Ideally, both partners have really poured the energy into their relationship necessary to really learn how to consciously communicate with each other, how to learn how to resolve conflicts in a way that supports growth. Like there's so many practical tools of relationship, like how to relate with one another in a way that's thriving, that we weren't necessarily taught in school, which I do think that kids need to start learning this as soon as, I mean, they learn by watching their parents, which is why a lot of grown-ups still fight because they saw their parents fighting or whatnot. But yeah, learning how to be together and grow from conflict. It's not, again, it's not about not fighting. It's not about even mom always being happy. I remember in my first pregnancy, there was a time where like, oh my God, I'm not happy. I'm feeling sad. Oh my gosh, my baby's feeling all this. Oh my gosh, like I'm a horrible mom because my baby's feeling all these emotions that I don't want to be feeling right now. And one of my friends was like, wait a minute, it's not about not feeling certain things. It's not that like sadness or anger is bad, but how can you utilize whatever it is that you're feeling so that you grow from it? Like, and if you can show your baby that, now that's wholesome. Because a lot of babies are taught like, this is a good boy and that's a bad boy. And it's like good, bad. It's like, no, it's like, how can you like create a wholesome life where they learn how to be in integrity with themselves ultimately? And that's always going to be good if they are in integrity with themselves.
100%. Yeah. Erin and I talk a lot about feelings. we both feel very deeply, and she's raising two twin babies, and they have feelings, and sometimes she's outnumbered, and now you have two babies too. So it's such an incredible spiritual, they're such gurus for us. Babies are such gurus because they're learning how to deal with intense emotions without any tools at all, and then we see ourselves in them. It's like, oh, I understand why you're feeling that way. I once felt that way. So how do I talk to my inner child through you, and we can grow together? you know
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
I felt that exhale. That was a good one. I feel like I touched on something good there, even though I'm not, you know, I can imagine it, just because, when I'm with children, I just feel like I think I already said this, but I just feel like we're all, collectively responsible for protecting and making children feel safe, loved, nurtured, and not just moms, everybody should be feeling this way about children. Um,
Yeah, and
and
how to respond consciously, I think, is something that you were hitting on. Like, rather than just like what's oftentimes happening in the world that we live in is that there's unconscious people who become unconscious parents who then raise their children unconsciously. And that
yes.
means repeating the patterns that they were parented with,
Hmm.
which oftentimes just instill the same trauma. It's just generational. And so if we become conscious ourselves, we can raise our children consciously, which means notice like, wow, I'm super triggered by my, 4-year-old disagreeing with everything and complaining about everything, rather than like yelling at him and telling him to stop complaining, he's got a good life, like whatever it is. Like,
Yeah.
how do I work on that wounded child inside of me that never got the space to feel? It's like, how do we always bring it back to like, wow, what's going on inside of me? What part of me isn't able to hold loving space for this little 4-year-old, for this little 2-year-old? It's like, yeah, I mean, I've had so much support by people like Janet Lansbury, who has really helped me, like, yeah, be a conscious parent. And even my son's, he goes to a beautiful little Montessori school, and just watching her and how she is with them, it's like, oh wow, it's just so beautiful. To use all of the opportunities as opportunities to heal, all the experiences, and how to respond rather than react. And to do that, we have to be nourished. It's literally like down to like the cellular nervous system nourishment. If I'm nourished, if I'm like taking care of myself, I'm much more likely to be able to hold space for all of you, whatever part of you that's arising. But if I'm depleted or disconnected or haven't slept right or forgot to eat breakfast, or like if I'm just less resourced, it's much more likely to go into this autopilot, more reactive state. And so much of motherhood is, how do I stay nourished so that I can hold loving space for these little people who are just learning how to be in the world, you know?
I love how you articulated that, less resourced. Gosh, It's so true. That's a really, really beautiful way of saying we can't pour from an empty cup. It's just not possible.
Yeah.
If we have nothing in our cup, how can we give you, the cup the cup is dry. We need to, right? We need to drink
Yeah.
some water in order to be able to be of use. And the
Yeah.
mama is ultimately, she is the pinnacle of
The
nourishment
well.
for everyone around her,
The
and
well.
we have this, yeah, the well. And we have this expectation of her always giving, right? Like
Mm.
this unsaid, unspoken,
Yeah.
maybe really like a deep seated sort of like taking for granted that the mother will always love us, right?
Mm.
But wait a minute, how can we also support mamas? Because they also need to receive nourishment and care and love and consideration and rest, you know, equally. It's an equal amount of care that moms need, which I don't
Oh, yeah.
think is maybe, focused on as much as babies. And I understand babies need, obviously they're developing, but like you said, you're sort of reborn when you become a mom. It's a new identity. You're
Oh,
initiated
yeah.
into a whole nother chapter of your personhood. You're you're never not a mom again. That's what
Totally.
they said to me in India. That day comes, right when that day happens, when you give birth, you're never not a mom again. For the rest of your life, you're now a mother. So, wow, what an incredible step
Yeah. Yeah, I feel like that's
initiation.
like I feel like I grew up when I became a mom because it was this realization of I'm not the last generation anymore. Now there's one below me. And so I was no longer the child. And I feel like until you become a mother, it's like you're still the child. You're still in that archetype. Even if you're, 45 years old. It's like you're still the last in the line. And so it's
Mm,
a powerful initiation for sure.
it's amazing. Well, I know we're at time. I have a million more questions, but I feel like, most of the questions I have, folks can probably just find out in your book by reading it, by ordering it and reading it, and connecting with you via Instagram. You have such amazing content that you're putting out all the time. I don't know, like it's amazing how, and like you said, like the consistency. I know what that's like with the podcast, having to, do the consistent episodes and everything. But I have to give you major praise, Dhyana. Um, you've inspired me so much. I'm grateful for the work you do. I hope many, many people find your book, and may it be an incredible resource for them to establish healthy Ojas, healthy Sattva, healthy Agni, and beautiful Sattvic souls to come and join us here because we need them.
Thank you, Sasha.
We
Thank you
need
for your
them.
blessings. And yeah, thank you so much for having me and for doing what you do, which is share this profound science, all different aspects of it. Because as big as life is, there's so many different aspects of Ayurveda to share with the world. So thank you for inviting me to share my piece. And however I can, serve your mission, please let me know.
Thank you so much.
Thank you for listening to Ojas Oasis with Sasha Bershadsky. To learn more about Ayurvedic healing, please visit ojasoasis.com. We'll see you next time, and until then, have your smile.